There is a lesson that many people learn far too late in life. They spend years trying to make everyone happy, trying to avoid disappointing anyone, trying to be liked by everyone they meet. They believe that if they are always kind, always available, always understanding, people will value them, respect them, and treat them well. But one day reality teaches them something painful. Being kind and being too nice are not the same thing. Kindness is strength. Being too nice without boundaries often becomes permission for people to take advantage of you. The world needs more kind people, but it does not need more people who abandon themselves just to gain approval. There is a difference. Real kindness comes from choice. People-pleasing comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing someone, fear of not being accepted. If fear is controlling your kindness, then it is no longer kindness. It is surrender. Think about a tree standing in the middle of a field. It gives shade to everyone who comes near it. But the tree never tears off its own branches, trying to satisfy every person who passes by. It gives what it can without destroying itself. You must learn to do the same. There was once a young carpenter who wanted everyone in his village to like him. Whenever someone asked for help, he immediately agreed, even when he was exhausted. He repaired doors he wasn't paid to fix. He worked late into the night because he couldn't say no. Months passed, and something strange happened. People stopped thanking him. They started expecting him. The day he finally refused one request because he was too tired, the same people who had praised him called him selfish. Confused, he visited an elderly craftsman and asked, "Why did they change?" The old man smiled and replied, "They didn't change. They became accustomed to receiving what you kept giving away." Never allow your generosity to become an expectation that leaves you empty. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing respect comes from always agreeing. It doesn't. Respect comes from honesty, from consistency, from character. People may enjoy someone who always says yes, but they trust someone who knows when to say no. There is power in the word no. Not because it rejects people, because it protects your purpose. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you're often saying no to something that truly matters. Your time, your family, your goals, your peace. Be careful what you sacrifice just to avoid making someone uncomfortable. Another lesson life teaches is that people naturally test boundaries, not always because they're bad people, sometimes because boundaries have never been clearly established. Imagine buying a beautiful home but never locking the front door. You wouldn't be surprised if strangers eventually walked inside. Not because every stranger is evil, because you've communicated that no boundary exists. Your life works the same way. If you never protect your time, people will assume it's always available. If you never protect your energy, people will keep taking it. If you never protect your peace, someone else's chaos will eventually become your daily routine. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. Doors allow the right people in while keeping harmful things out. There was an old lighthouse standing beside a dangerous coastline. Every night it guided ships safely through storms. One evening a sailor asked the keeper, "Why don't you leave the light on during the day as well?" The keeper answered, "Because light has a purpose. If it shines all the time without wisdom, people stop respecting it." Think carefully about that. If you're constantly available, constantly sacrificing, constantly fixing everyone's problems, people stop recognizing the value of your time. Scarcity creates appreciation. Wisdom knows when to give and when to step back. Another reason many people remain trapped in unhealthy relationships is because they confuse acceptance with approval. You can love someone without approving every decision they make. You can care about someone without carrying every burden they refuse to carry themselves. Some people spend years trying to rescue those who have no intention of changing. In the process, they slowly lose themselves. Remember this: helping someone is different from enabling them. Helping creates growth. Enabling creates dependence. Know the difference. There was once a teacher who noticed one student constantly asking others to complete his assignments. Instead of giving him another answer, the teacher quietly handed him an empty notebook and said, "The answers you're looking for cannot become yours until the effort becomes yours." That student was frustrated, but years later he admitted it became one of the greatest lessons of his life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to make someone comfortable in their excuses. Growth often begins where comfort ends. I've noticed something about emotionally strong people. They don't chase approval. They chase integrity. They're willing to be misunderstood if it means remaining true to their values. Not everyone will agree with your decisions. Not everyone has to. Some people will criticize you simply because you stopped giving them unlimited access to your time. Don't confuse disappointment with disrespect. Someone being unhappy with your boundary doesn't mean your boundary is wrong. It often means your boundary is working. Imagine a river flowing through a valley. The river nourishes farms, villages, and forests. But if it leaves its banks completely, it becomes destructive. Its strength exists because it has direction. Your kindness is exactly the same. Without direction, it eventually becomes self-destruction. Another thing you must understand is that confidence is often quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. Confident people don't feel guilty for protecting their priorities. They don't apologize for needing rest. They don't feel ashamed for choosing growth over popularity because they've learned something important. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Take care of your own mind, your own health, your own purpose. Only then can your kindness remain genuine instead of becoming resentment disguised as generosity. One of the saddest things in life is watching good people slowly become bitter, not because they were kind, because they never learned balance. They gave until they were exhausted. They forgave without wisdom. They trusted without discernment. They sacrificed until they forgot who they were. Don't let that become your story. Remain kind. Remain compassionate. Remain generous. But also remain wise. Because wisdom protects kindness from becoming weakness. There will come a moment when someone asks more from you than you can honestly give. Don't lie. Don't make excuses. Simply tell the truth. I can't. Those two words may feel uncomfortable at first, but they protect years of unnecessary frustration. Remember this. The people who truly respect you will also respect your boundaries. The people who only valued what they could get from you may leave. If they leave because you finally respected yourself, then you didn't lose the right people. You simply stopped carrying the wrong expectations. And that is where real freedom begins. And when that freedom begins, you'll notice something surprising. You don't become colder. You don't become selfish. You don't become arrogant. You simply become more intentional. Instead of giving your energy to everyone, you begin investing it where it truly matters. And that's one of the greatest signs of maturity. Mature people understand that their time is limited, their energy is valuable, and their peace is worth protecting. One of the biggest misunderstandings in life is believing that saying no makes you a bad person. It doesn't. Sometimes saying no is the most honest answer you can give. Imagine a doctor who works 24 hours without rest because he can't refuse every patient. Eventually, exhaustion causes him to make mistakes. The very people he wanted to help are now placed at risk because he refused to recognize his own rolight. Kasunda, you are no different. When you refuse to rest, when you refuse to protect your time, when you refuse to create boundaries, you slowly lose the ability to give your best to anyone. A burned out person cannot consistently serve others. Protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's responsible. There was once an elderly businessman who had built a successful company over 40 years. A young entrepreneur asked him what the most important lesson of success had been. The old man didn't mention money. He didn't mention intelligence. He simply said, I learned that every time I said yes to the wrong opportunity, I was saying no to the right one. Think about your own life. How many hours have disappeared because you couldn't refuse unnecessary conversations? How many dreams have been delayed because you kept solving problems that weren't yours? How many evenings meant for your goals were given away because you felt guilty saying no. Life doesn't usually steal your future all at once. It steals it one unnecessary distraction at a time. Another lesson you must remember is that people often respect confidence more than constant availability. Imagine two professionals. One accepts every request immediately, no matter how unreasonable. The other politely explains when they're available and honors their commitments. Who appears more dependable? Usually the second, because boundaries communicate something powerful. They say, I value my word. If you promise too much and constantly disappoint people, kindness becomes meaningless. If you make realistic commitments and consistently keep them, trust begins growing. Trust is built through consistency, not through endless people-pleasing. I've noticed that many people are afraid of disappointing others, but never stop to ask themselves an important question. What about disappointing myself? Every time you ignore your purpose, every time you abandon your values, every time you betray your priorities, you disappoint the one person who must live with your decisions every day, yourself. Don't become so busy earning everyone else's approval that you lose your own respect. Self-respect is earned in quiet moments, when nobody is watching, when you choose discipline over comfort, when you protect your principles even if someone becomes upset, when you refuse to compromise your future for temporary acceptance. There was once a violin teacher whose students admired the beauty of her performances. One afternoon, a student asked, "How do you play with such confidence?" She smiled and answered, "I stopped trying to impress the audience. I started focusing on honoring the music." That answer reaches far beyond music. The moment you stop living to impress people, you begin living with purpose. Purpose always outlasts popularity. Popularity changes with opinions. Purpose remains steady. Another truth many people avoid is this: not everyone deserves unlimited access to your life. Some people inspire you, others constantly drain you. Some encourage your growth, others criticize every step you take. Pay attention to patterns, not promises. Anyone can apologize, anyone can make excuses, but consistent behavior reveals true intentions. Protect your circle carefully, because your environment quietly shapes your future. There was an old gardener, known for growing beautiful roses. Someone asked why he spent so much time removing weeds before watering the flowers. He answered, "If I water everything equally, the weeds grow just as fast as the roses." Think carefully about that. So your attention works exactly the same way. Whatever receives your energy grows. Feed your purpose. Feed your discipline. Feed your faith. Stop feeding unnecessary drama. Stop feeding constant negativity. Stop feeding relationships that only exist because you keep sacrificing yourself. Healthy relationships grow through mutual respect, not one-sided exhaustion. Another important lesson is learning the difference between kindness and weakness. Weakness fears rejection. Kindness accepts it. Weakness changes values to gain acceptance. Kindness remains respectful without abandoning truth. Weakness stays silent because it fears conflict. Kindness speaks honestly with humility. Never confuse gentleness with surrender. The strongest people are often the calmest. They don't need to argue loudly. They simply remain firm, like an oak tree standing during a storm. The wind may blow against it. The rain may fall. The branches may bend, but the roots remain steady. Build roots like that. Roots of integrity. Roots of confidence. Roots of wisdom. When your roots are strong, other people's opinions stop controlling your emotions. Another lesson worth remembering is that not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people walk with you for a season. Some teach lessons. Some inspire growth. Some reveal what you should never become. Be grateful for every lesson, but don't hold on to people simply because you've known them for a long time. Time alone doesn't create healthy relationships. Respect does. Trust does. Growth does. Mutual effort does. One day you'll realize that protecting your peace isn't about avoiding people. It's about choosing the right people. The people who celebrate your growth instead of competing with it. The people who encourage your discipline instead of distracting you from it. The people who respect your boundaries without demanding explanations. Keep those people close. Another habit that transforms your life is becoming comfortable with silence. You don't need to answer every insult. You don't need to defend yourself against every rumor. You don't need the final word in every disagreement. Silence often protects your dignity better than endless arguments ever could. Time has a remarkable way of revealing truth. Allow it to work. I've learned that emotionally mature people ask themselves one simple question before making a decision. Will this matter a year from now? Most arguments won't. Most opinions won't. Most temporary frustrations won't. But your character will. Your integrity will. Your purpose will. Invest your energy there. And finally, remember this. Never stop being kind. The world desperately needs kind people. But let your kindness come from strength, not insecurity. Let your generosity come from wisdom, not guilt. Let your compassion come from confidence, not fear of rejection. Be the person who helps others without losing yourself, who gives without becoming empty, who loves without abandoning truth, who forgives without inviting repeated disrespect. Walk through life with an open heart but clear boundaries. Speak with humility but stand with conviction. Serve others but never sacrifice your purpose to earn temporary approval. Because the people who leave when you begin respecting yourself were never committed to you. They were committed to your availability. The people who truly value you will remain. They'll respect your time, honor your boundaries, celebrate your growth, and encourage you to become even stronger. So beginning today, stop trying to convince everyone to like you. Instead, become someone worthy of your own respect. Stand tall without arrogance. Be humble without becoming invisible. Be generous without becoming exhausted. Be compassionate without becoming controlled. And remember this every morning. You were never created to please everyone. You were created to live with integrity, walk in wisdom, and fulfill your purpose. Because the strongest people are not those who are loved by everyone. The strongest people are those who know who they are, protect what matters, remain kind without becoming weak, and move through life with quiet confidence that no opinion, no manipulation, and no pressure can ever take away